Guys and ladies, mostly ladies, not really that many guys, let's be honest. How are you? Welcome back to the Lion and Supple podcast. I'm really excited for this week's episode. It's with my friend Mary Rosemeyer. So Mary and I have known each other for a little while, but before I dive into her episode, you guys, I want to just quickly share some gratitude for all of the lovely reviews that have been pouring in through iTunes. And if you are a listener and you're like, I love this podcast, if you have shared it on the gram or with your friends, but haven't left a review, could you please do that? Because it means so much to me. And I love reading them. And now I just want to brag a little bit. So I got a really beautiful review from Jessie Burr. She says, I love this podcast. I start each morning with a meditation from this podcast, and it's the perfect way to start my day. I've always struggled with meditation, but for some reason, Emily just speaks to me and it makes it easy and fun. Oh, thank you, Jessie. And you know, it's so funny. I hear that compliment all the time where people, because actually, like, little backstory, I thought that when I was meditating, like I was doing it wrong. And so my version seems to be working for all of us people who think that we do meditation wrong. So high five to all the people who have struggled meditating, but it only works when you do it with me. Yay. So, all right. So Mary is here and we're just smiling at each other because we're excited to be in the same room virtually. And so Mary and I have known each other for a few years. A couple years, 2 years. So we started off sort of just like as online acquaintances. And then Mary joined my program, Business Made Simple. She was one of the betas, and she was in this really incredible opportunity, this time in her career where she was transitioning. I'll let her get into the fun story because it's really good. And she started to really open up these channels of intuition, started to really lean into it. And now I've seen her progress over a couple of years and just fully leaning into her authentic self and not apologetic about who she is. And like, I personally really love her and I love her message. So, that has nothing to do with who you are, what you do. I know. So you have a membership. So she can be found at the UNLEASHEDlife _ on Instagram. And you have a membership that you talk to women who are dog lovers. So super niche down. And some people are like, tell me more. So before you became this like dog lover, like dog mom, like community grower, tell the listeners a little bit about like where you've come from and your experience, because I think it's so important to hear the backstory, because you didn't just like show up and like, perfect, I have my niche and we're done with it. So welcome, Mary, and share the listeners sort of more about you.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me on. I actually started out, I've been a career entrepreneur. I have never had a full-time job with anybody ever. Wow. And I mean, unless you count the summer that I was at the YMCA and I literally paddled out into the middle of the lake every day and went on the water trampoline. But other than that, I have never been full-time employed. So I started out as a screen printer with my best friend, and I worked for people part-time, and the recession hit and I lost my part-time job and I could not find work. So I went to school actually for visual merchandising and business. So I could not find work anywhere. And, my mom was an interior designer and she had a store previously and she had a home office. And I just kept, looking for all these jobs. Nothing was lining up for me. And there was a storefront that I would walk past every single day. My boyfriend lived in that town. So, I was home all day. I didn't have anything to do. So I'd be out walking and I would pass this storefront and it was just vacant forever. And I was like, we should open up a store. So like, I can do the retail. I can take care of the products, the store itself, and then you can take your design business and run it out of the store. So it can be like basically two businesses in one. So in 2010, we actually did that. We took that leap and everybody told us that we were completely nuts. They're like, this is the worst idea. What are you doing? There is a recession. Why are you going into retail right now? But we were just like, we're doing it. We did basically everything that we were, quote unquote, supposed to do. Had a business plan. We would sit out in the car in my mom's van, like scoping out the place more or less, just to make sure there was like foot traffic and whatnot. And we signed the lease and we had a store for almost 10 years. It was last April or May that I ended up closing it. And that's kind of where the whole journey began.
So I have to pause you a little because we as entrepreneurs, it's our job to see things that nobody else can see. And so usually if we're doing it right, we're thinking big, people do think that we're crazy because most people are looking out for our best interests and they want to keep us safe. And they're used to cushy 9-to-5 jobs where like, they're not supposed to be dreamers. So when everybody is like, no, don't do this, what was it internally that drove you and was like, this has to come out of me? Why did you want to open a store?
I don't know. It was just like, I'm so passionate about I'm super multi-passionate, I guess I should say. And I've got just so many just ideas. And this was the greatest way to kind of be not only creative with my hands and do like window displays, and it was just kind of a way to make an experience for people and bring that all together with like events. And I don't know, it's really kind of hard to articulate what exactly it was, but it was just like, we're just meant to do this. And we're just so driven that it's gonna happen. There was no two ways about it.
I love that. And so let's take us down the timeline. So, 10 years in business, that's a really long time. That's a very loyal following. That's a lot of success. And I know you personally, so I know like you've shared, every like retailers, are working holidays and weekends. So your schedule was really, you were always so busy. You were always working a lot. So having to make a transition out of that, like, can you take us through that? Because there must have been a lot of fears, a lot of doubts, and like, what am I doing? Like, because now everything is like working great. So were those people who were naysayers before now saying, no, just stay where you are. Don't make another change?
Yeah, kind of they were, but it was just very progressive. What happened is that, hindsight's always 2020. And I know now looking back that this was always really out of alignment for me because, where I was at that point in time, I was like 27 years old and I'm, I've never really been like a stuff person. I've always been very much quality over quantity. And here I am trying to make a living selling stuff. I mean, I like nice things. I like to invest in things that are going to last a long time. But here I am trying to sell things for a living. And I'm 27 years old and selling, like a $400 lamp. Like, I can't afford this. So there's like this really big disconnect between having to sell a product that I personally could not afford myself and trying to convince somebody else that this was something that they needed. And it just became progressively more uncomfortable for me and more out of alignment. And, I kind of started to become resentful to the fact that I was there all day long. And I just felt like I was made for doing something so much more than just trying to help somebody pick out a gift. And I absolutely adored my clients and my customers. I mean, I had a handful of, like, there's one woman, Judy, who I'm going to have to tell her to listen to this, but Judy was like the sweetest, most kind customer ever. I still talk to her. We text, and she came in every single Saturday and purchase something. And I'd be like, Judy, you don't have to make a purchase. Like, if you just want to come say hi, I would be more than happy to talk to you. I love just hanging out with you. But she just really wanted to support it. And she would come in every single Saturday. So I had this amazing customer base. And I'm feeling kind of guilty. Like, this is somebody else's dream out there to have a boutique. I'm living that dream. And yet I'm really unhappy with it. Why am I so unhappy with this? But it came to the point where I I couldn't deny it anymore. It was kind of rumbling in the background. And then my brother and I took a trip to Iceland in 2018. And that's like, there was just so much quiet time there. And there's just something really special about Iceland. If you've ever been to Hawaii, there's like this very specific feeling of Hawaii. And my brother actually lives in Hawaii. So we were both commenting on how like deeply spiritual both Hawaii and Iceland feel. They're almost like kind of opposites, like temperature and climate wise. But it was just like a really clarifying trip for me. And it was like, okay, you know what? Like, this is just, it's not for you anymore. It's time to make an exit plan. And you got to get the ball rolling on that.
Wow. And so, I mean, I love those clarifying moments where you're just so clear. So, I mean, and obviously I talk about getting quiet all the time. I mean, the review was about meditation, and like I use meditation to get quiet, to grow my business and to get clear on all kinds of things. So it sounds like the quiet time in Iceland was a really what you needed to be like. It's like when you're busy doing stuff and working and being in retail, you're like so busy, but having the space, it was like that nagging feeling was now like so undeniable and screaming at you that you couldn't ignore it anymore. That's kind of what it sounds like.
Yeah, pretty much. And like the year beforehand, I had like a full-blown mental breakdown that kind of fueled all this. I remember being in the kitchen with my husband and just like hysterically crying for no reason. He's like, what's going on? I'm like, I don't know, but something is just not right. And like, I don't know. I know that a huge change is on the horizon for me, but I don't know what it is. I don't know what it means. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And he's just like, you're just really unhappy. Like, maybe it's time to close the store. And I was like, like, how dare you? No, that is not time for this. And I just like resisted it. So like he knew way before I did. And he's like, you don't like it. And I was like, so offended. Like, how dare you put that on me? I know.
Right. That's like, that's what's so funny is like the places that we get triggered, we know that there's some healing to do there. So, you know, you're like, I'm defending yourself. Like, I love that. That's hysterical. And so just take us through the transition, because, you know, we want to talk about your own individual personal self, your own personality, like who you are. So, you know, it sounds like Iceland was like the first piece of sort of like unveiling who you really are and being able to really listen to that. Your husband was another catalyst to like, oh, maybe there's a part of you that's kind of dying inside and maybe she needs to be heard. So how did you start to connect with her?
Yeah, so I would even call it more of just like a coming back into who I've been all along. I feel like what I had to do at the store was become somebody who I thought was going to be, you know, a store owner, you know. And I thought I had to become all of these things to be like really likable. Like I was so into just being a people pleaser. Like, heaven forbid I like set boundaries, even with returns. You know, somebody would come in and I had a return policy and I would always make exceptions for it. Like, oh, sure, I'll take this, even though you purchased it like 4 months ago and it's like a seasonal item. And like all of the pieces of my personality that were like fun and lighthearted, I kind of like stuffed away, because I thought that, you know, if you wanted to be successful in business, that you had to be somebody who was like really buttoned up and super professional. And yes, I mean, you do want to be professional to some degree, but it doesn't mean that you can't let your personality shine through. I mean, I have the personality and humor of like a 3rd grade boy. So for me, yeah, like, I'll talk about fart jokes all day long if you want to.
Well, I was just gonna say, one of our like recent posts was like literally a unicorn farting. It was like, inhale the good, exhale the bullshit, and like it got so many likes. Like, my people, these are my people, because we can talk about fart jokes. Like, that's it.
Yeah, exactly. So like I'm, you know, trying to like stuff down all of these parts of me that's what makes me fun and that's what draws people to me. And here I am trying to play those really small and hide them away somewhere and try to become somebody else. So through that whole process of trying to be somebody who I thought I needed to be in order to be quote unquote successful, I just completely lost myself along the way.
And I think what's really cool, what's coming up for me is also parts of you that have inspired me is when I do see your real self, when I see you like doing like acrobatics on silks up in the air. And I'm like, oh, I literally Googled like, is there a place near me where I can learn how to do this? Like, this is amazing. I want to be like Mary when I grow up. But like when you share that, and when you share like your quirky dog sense of humor, and when you're sharing like those sorts of parts of who you are, it's so much more relatable. Like we think that we have to be this person so that we're liked and people invest in us and people take us seriously. And it couldn't be further from the truth. And I feel like that's happened to me in many cases as well. And especially in my early 20s and wanting to fit a specific mold and what people thought I should be like. I mean, I remember being in high school, I was like, I'm going to have a business by the time I'm whatever. And I did, but then I also had like such crazy strong boundaries that like, I mean, I was surprised my clients even knew my last name. Like I was just like all business and like, it can only get you so far.
Yeah, it's true. And it's just been such really interesting. And it really all started last year when I started with Business Made Simple, about how much I was leaning into, I think we've all been kind of duped into what, you know, business is supposed to be. And it's just so analytical, which, you know, naturally I'm just very in my head and very analytical, which is great. But there's also this really important component of just getting into flow and being intuitive. And that's so much more useful and practical in business than just the strategy. Because as you've said a million times, like you can have all the funnels and the strategies and courses and whatever, but if you're not doing the inner work, if you're not tapping into that and using your intuition, you can pretty much just throw all of that out the window. It's not going to work. And if you're trying to emulate somebody else and do exactly what they have done, exactly the way that they have done it, it's also not going to work for you because you're not them. Everybody has their own inner workings and their own world and things that work for them. It can't possibly work for you in the exact same way. So you have to be brave and take what works and then also kind of infuse your own kind of vibe into it.
Totally. And it's really, it's obviously, it's no mystery that some of the wealthiest people in the world attribute their success to using their intuition. And that's how they become innovative, because they have dreams, they have gut instincts, they have a thought that's like, this has never been done before, because they're not following somebody else's system. And they're just saying, okay, I feel this way. I'm going to trust my gut and I'm going to go with it. And you know, I've had those times, and I'm sure we all have, where we've had a gut instinct and we've ignored it and then later regretted it. And it's so funny that you bring up the analytical and the intuition, because I actually just this morning had a call with a friend, and she's like, oh, so tell me what you're building right now. And I told her, and she's like, that is such a killer strategy. How did you think of that? And I said, I didn't, I channeled it. Like, you know, that's what's so ironic, is that my best ideas, my best strategies are completely from my higher self, from my intuition, from feeling the energy, from like something's missing, something doesn't feel right. Let me connect with my soulmate client. What does she need from me? And that's what builds it all. And so like, yeah, we need this, but we need the analytical, just like, does it actually work? Or is this just some like little dream I had? So Business Made Simple helped you to really get back into your intuition, to start listening to yourself. So making the transition out of your brick and mortar, getting into your, like the online space, creating a membership, like how did all that transpire? Because it happened relatively quickly, right?
It doesn't feel like it, but actually when I look back, I'm like, wow, I really accomplished a lot last year. So like, if anybody else is in the same position, I just want to encourage you to actually go back and like celebrate all of the stuff that you have done, because we get so wrapped up in being, you know, focusing on the end point, which, you know, we all know there is no end point. It's evolving, but we never really stop to like celebrate and be like, wow, I actually did a lot in this small amount of time. So yeah, it started off like I knew I wanted to help people. I knew that everything that I had personally learned into pulling myself out of that like really dark space in 2017 was something that a lot of other women needed. And I just saw that there was like a lack. There was not really anything that I identified with as far as being like I'm so into like the whole spiritual thing, and I think that's one of the reasons why I was drawn to you is like you're so down to earth about it. Like I don't resonate with like the really beautiful like flowy goddess sort of thing.
I don't either. I know.
No, like I don't refer to my work as medicine, and it's just not me. And if that's for somebody else, that's amazing. But for me, it's just like I am a Virgo, and I'm just like very practical and grounded, and I'm just an earth sign. So I'm like, I don't get this.
I didn't know that you were a Virgo, but Virgos are perfect people. Like they are absolutely amazing people. I did not know that you were a Virgo. That's so funny. And actually my other Virgo friend who is very woo-woo is very ground to earth and practical as well. It's just like you. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, I get the Virgo thing, and I love the like, it's very like the maiden and the harvesting of the knowledge, and that like resonates with me. I love that. And it's very maternal, but not like smothering. And so I was just like, there's got to be other people out there who feel the same way. Like you're made for more, but like none of us are taught how to access that, or even what questions to ask to get the ball rolling. So naturally, as I was closing my store, women were asking me, what are you doing? And at that time, I didn't really know. I knew that I was like starting an online business, but my husband and I also moved to a farm. So I was telling them about, you know, this farm that we purchased, and we want to make it like an event space, and we can have like daytime retreats for women and just do kind of like wellness stuff. And all of the women either said, oh my gosh, I wish I could do something like that, but I have no idea where to begin. Or they're like, I don't even know what I'm passionate about anymore. And I was like, wow. Okay, so there's this whole lack of self-care that's happening here. And a lot of people are confusing like the quote unquote self-care, like treat yourself version of self-care, which is awesome. But that's not, it's like a good entry point, but it's not what is lacking, or it's not what is needed right now. People need, it's like a good entryway, but they need tools on how to ask themselves questions to even figure out like, what do I want to do with my life? What does make me happy these days? Like, I don't even know. So that's kind of where it started, and I just kind of took the ball and ran with it. And, you know, I pivoted a lot, a lot. And that was kind of the fun part for me, because I'm an overcoming perfectionist. I'm working on it. So to pivot and make a lot of messy action has been really helpful for me. And just one day it hit me, dogs. Looking at life through the lens of your dog. Like, dogs are so great at teaching us how to be in the moment, which Lord knows all of us need to learn how to do a little bit more of. How to be more accountable for our actions, how to surround ourselves with good community, and also how to help in our own communities, and how to be kind. So I was in a hotel room, and I was at Tribe Live, and I was actually the golden ticket winner, which was kind of cool because I never win anything. So it was kind of like the culmination of like my coming out year for me. So I got this golden ticket and I was like basically front and center for this whole entire conference, which for me as an introvert, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to die because everybody is going to be coming to me and talking, but it was really amazing. But I was out for a walk one day and it literally hit me and I could not sleep all night after I thought about the dog portion of it. And I woke up the next day and I full blown channeled the whole entire membership, the core modules, everything. And it was just like, bam, there it is. And I took it and I ran with it. And yeah, here I am. I've got a membership site.
Yeah. And I feel like I saw it coming because there was like some post, like a thread. You're like, you know what I want to do? All I want to do is da 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 da. And like, that's so hard to ask. And people are like, I want that. And you're like, wait, what? It was so amazing to see, like, you finally were just like, damn it, this is it. And everyone's like, no, but I want that too. So it was like such a validation of like what you were feeling called to do. And then like, boom, you're like, but you guys are my friends. And they're like, no, like, I want that.
And it still keeps happening because sometimes I still question it. I'm like, maybe it's too niche. Maybe I should not reach out to dog lovers. But in the moments that I was feeling that kind of doubt, I actually got emails from members saying, you know, like, it's been a really long time and I never responded to this first email that you sent out 4 months ago. But one of the main reasons that I signed up for it was actually the dog angle. And I was like, well, gosh darn it. Okay, then.
Right? That's the funny thing, is that we get that validation exactly when we need it, when we have the doubts, and also there can be a funny, tricky thing is like if you're pulling away from it, sometimes you'll just get those little tests like, are you sure you want to pull away from it? And like, it will help to keep you on your course. But see, the difference between brick and mortar Mary and Mary now is that you're in alignment. And so when you feel those nudges to like, I don't know, and you're doubting yourself, you get that fast message that is like, nope, we're right back on. We're on track. We're good. And you can stay the course. So tell listeners a little bit about your membership and sort of like what you do inside of there. Like, yes, okay, dog moms, but like, let's hear more about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously dog moms and dog memes, because I love to laugh and, you know, humor is one of my core values. So it's basically somebody put it to me. They're like, what is this? And I explained it to them and they're like, oh, so basically it's like life coaching, but for people who don't like life coaching and like dogs. And I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. So we have,
I get it.
It works. All right. We have 4 core modules. They're called PAC, and it goes through how to kind of look at yourself like the way that your dog does, or the way that your dog looks at life. So, you know, I went over a little bit of it earlier, but it's like pause and be present, how to be accountable. We have a community module where we actually start to create, like for the local ladies, we're going to gather and make blankets I do a lot with Live Like Rue Foundation, and what they do is they create these care packages. If your dog has been diagnosed with cancer, they will help you to pay the bills, and at the very least, they will send you one of these really sweet care packages that have like treats and toys and cookies. And one of the things that they are most known for are these hand-tied blankets, and they rely on, you know, volunteers to get them done. So we're going to do like blanket tying parties so we can send those off to Live Like Rue. And then every month I have it's called a Life on Purpose list. So it is a handful of things for you to do on your own, things to do with your dog. So February coming up, we're going to be doing a photo shoot of like a quote unquote romantic dinner with your dog, and just like silly things like that. But also like, you know, take your dog out on a date to like a brewery. And you know, we keep it light in the monthly deliverables, because the core content is a bit more introspective and, you know, kind of moving through like the icky, sticky stuff that, you know, we have to if we want to get to the other side of it. So it's been so much fun, and it's just so fulfilling to kind of merge my love of, you know, helping women to achieve a better life for themselves and just even have tools to ask questions that they need to be asking. And then dogs.
Love that. And I love dogs too. And actually, I think it is great to have that dog component for dog lovers, because that's who you are. And that's the like what lights you up. And you've stepped away from doing things that just were out of alignment and not feeling good. So as we're creating our new reality, like, of course, do the things that make you feel excited and light and joyful, and being around people who are like that too. I definitely resonate with that message. And for those of you who are listening, you want to get more information about Mary and her membership, we'll put it in the show notes, but maybe you can just tell them quickly where they can find more information about it.
Oh, sure. Yeah. You can find me on the old interwebs at My Unleashed Life, or you can come hang out on Instagram, and I'm at UnleashedLife_. I also have a free Facebook group that you can come join. We hang out in there. It's not specific to dogs, so if you are not a dog owner, don't worry, you are welcome here as well. And that is Soulful Boss Babes.
Love that. I'm writing that down for the people. If there was like one message that you could give, like now that you're in alignment, you're continuously just taking aligned action, listening to your intuition and feeling in that flow state, attracting a lot of amazing people into your world, and seeing sort of just like miracles and people interested in things. And you're like, wow, this is great. If you have all this knowledge now, if you could look back and give advice to your former self, like you already can see like what's going to happen. And obviously you knew that there was something in you that you were meant for more than just like this retail thing. What advice do you feel like you would give your old self?
Stop worrying so much in general, and stop worrying about being so likable and being a people pleaser, because it's such a buzzkill. It literally is like you're a match on fire, and then you start to doubt yourself. You start to consider what other people are thinking about you, and it's just like dunking that match into some water, and it just, everything about you that makes you is just extinguished. So I would tell myself just to lean into it. And the people that are going to get you are going to get you. And the people who don't. And people are judging you regardless anyway. So why not just be happy in who you are and not worry about the rest? It's not that difficult. It's pretty cut and dry.
Right. And for people who are struggling, like for me, I was really struggling for a long time of like, what am I into? Like, if you guys saw, what was it? No, it wasn't the name of the big red shoe. It was The Jerk. If you guys saw Steve Martin, The Jerk, and he like, it was actually in a scene where he was having sex, and he goes, "I found my special purpose." Like his whole life, he didn't know what made him special, and then he had sex, and he goes, "I found my special purpose." But like, I don't know why I just referenced that. Sorry, you guys. But in my life, I was like, well, what makes me special? Yeah, I'm a healer, but there's a lot of healers. And I knew I wasn't special. Like I didn't have my niche. I didn't help entrepreneurs. I didn't have any of that. So what advice would you give somebody who's kind of lost and like, I know I'm meant for more, but I don't know exactly what that looks like. I don't even know what I fully am like into even. Like what advice could you give some of those people?
I've so been there, and sometimes I'm still there. I'm like, I don't feel like I have like a thing. Like I help this person with this thing and that's it. Like I've always just been so multi-passionate. And I would just say to like, try, if you have just one small spark of like, oh, that might be interesting. I wonder what that's like. Like we were talking about earlier, I'm an aerialist, and I can't tell you how many times people are like, oh my gosh, that sounds like it's so much fun. I could never do that. You could do it. Like go out and find something, anything that is just like, makes you be like, oh, that thought doesn't come up for no reason. That's that's a little breadcrumb that's leading you to something, and you don't know what it's going to be unless you actually take some aligned action on it and go figure it out. You might love it, you might not, but at least go give it a shot. I mean, the more you can expose yourself just to different thoughts, ideas, feelings, activities, food, I don't know, like we live in a pretty amazing world with a lot of really cool stuff to do. So, I mean, just like get out there and just try something. And if you're scared, that's probably even better. Like lean into the fear, feel it, and then just do it. Do it anyways. And this is coming from somebody who literally came out of the womb. Like my mom used to call me Nervous Nelly because I was just scared of everything and like just worried all the time. So if I can say like, just go out there and try it, you're not going to die. You're probably going to end up liking something. I'm here. I'm living. I'm telling the tale. You can do it.
She didn't die when she tried stuff, you guys. And I appreciate
Amazing.
that. And I love that advice as well, because that breadcrumb, whether it's in your business or just in like what's like finding some passions that light you up and some new hobbies and maybe making new friends. Because as adults, like it's kind of weird and awkward to make new friends sometimes. That's a great idea, is just to like follow that breadcrumb and maybe it leads to something really great. And maybe you're like, nope, cross that off. But as you were talking, I realized I was looking into aerial because I really crave stuff that brings me into my body, whether it's through dance, through yoga. And I was like, oh, I've like hung on those like little silks before. And I'm like, oh, this is so fun. And I get so into my body. And it brings you into that present moment. So I love that. It's kind of like, it's all of those things wrapped up into one too. So thank you for sharing that. That's great advice as well for our listeners to take with them. And I know that can really hit the mark for a lot of people, because if we want to know like, oh, well, I know I'm meant for more, but I just don't know how, that's such good advice on every level. So thank you. And I really just appreciate you being here and sharing what you've shared and like just your journey, because I know it's so much easier. Like you mentioned, like looking back in hindsight, like you sort of figured all the things out, but when you're in the muck, it's so good to connect with people who are like you, that you've been through it. And like you said, like you lived to tell the tale. So thank you for sharing your story and just sharing how you found your voice and your personal interest and your personal brand and like all the pieces that have come together. Thank you for your time and sharing that on the podcast today, Mary.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. It's just so much fun.
It is so much fun. So people, especially dog people, but other people too, who, even if you don't have a dog, at UNLEASHEDlife_, make sure you tag Mary, tag me, take a screenshot of this week's episode and be like, hey, I listened and I like you guys. And if nothing else, just like say hi to us. We love DMs. We love getting tagged in your stories. Pretty much if you take a screenshot and share my podcast, I'm gonna share it. So like there's that. I love hearing from you guys. And if this episode resonated with you, please let us know. Please reach out to Mary. Check out myunleashedlife.com. And we will see you on next week's episode. Thank you guys so much for being here. And thank you again, Mary.
Thank you.